Game Freak are obviously most known for the Pokémon franchise, but what other games have they made outside of that? What other ideas could this billion-dollar development studio come up with? How about, horse racing mixed with solitaire? Excuse me, what? Pocket Card Jockey. Initially made as a 3DS eShop exclusive, this game was recently released for the Nintendo Switch as announced in the recent partner showcase, and I could not be happier about that fact. You may think that the concept sounds completely absurd, but trust me on this one, it actually works. But before we get into the main gameplay, I just want to address the sheer epitome of peak fiction that is this game's story. Basically, you're an aspiring jockey who wants to become the best in the world, but as you soon find out, you are kinda trash at horse racing. So trash in fact that when you attempt to train, not participate in a race, train, you fail so miserably that you fall over and die after being kicked in the head by a stampede of horses. No, I am not making this up, but it gets better. You wake up in some kind of purgatory where an angel who looks suspiciously like your trainer promises to revive you on one condition, that you fulfill your dream of being a successful jockey and winning the Royal Derby. If you don't, then you'll be sent to, heck for all eternity. However, as you're kinda terrible at your job, the angel decides to revive you with the power to race horses using your one and only talent, solitaire. Incredible plot. Shakespeare's been real quiet ever since this dropped. And so the game begins. You enter your first race, and this is where you see A, how surprisingly well things work, and B, how mechanically deep this game really is. The main gist of it is that you have to play rounds of solitaire to make your horse go faster. In each race, you typically play between 2 and 5 rounds where you have to try and clear the board as best as you can. Things can get intense here as there's also a time limit ticking down gradually, so you need to work fast. The more cards you clear, the more energy and unity power you're rewarded with. Energy generally builds up over time, and I'll touch on it more later, but for now, let's address what exactly Unity Power is. Basically, between rounds of solitaire, you're able to move your horse around the course, but there's a lot to think about when choosing your position. First and foremost, how much Unity Power that you have dictates how far you're able to travel. It's often good to be on the inside of a turn, as you'll consume less stamina that way, but it can be difficult to get into that position when there are other horses blocking your way. It's not all bad news if you end up on the outside though. In fact, sometimes the game incentivizes it with cards that you can pick up to provide you with more energy, stamina, or experience. Whatever Unity Power that you're left with after you move can then be converted into energy. And then, of course, you have the comfort zone mechanic. Basically, there are 3 different coloured areas of the track, which are white, yellow and red. Which area you move your horse to determines how difficult the hand you're dealt will be. So if you're right bang in the middle in the red zone, you'll have to play a pretty tough round of solitaire, but if you're more on the outside, things should be easier. The twist is that successfully clearing a harder solitaire game will give your horse a lot more energy, so it's worth giving it a shot. In fact, clearing a round at the highest difficulty will give you super Unity Power, which allows you to blow other horses out of the way as you move and suck on any nearby cards. Just bear in mind that if you screw it up and have a bunch of cards left at the end of the game, your horse won't be too pleased with you. That's another thing you have to consider, your horse's mood. Being in a good mood means that you can get more energy out of your Unity Power. If you mess things up really badly though, like I did here, I'm sorry, I'm not very good at solitaire, your horse will go berserk and zoom super far ahead, but drain almost all of its stamina in the process. Not exactly what you want at the end of a race. Finally, after all rounds of solitaire have been played, everything culminates in the Homestretch, the make or break part of the race. This is where everything comes into play. Your stamina, your energy, your position, and any bonus cards that you picked up along the way. The more energy that you've accumulated, the faster that you go, but stamina is also crucial. If you don't have enough at this point, your horse will run out of steam and fall behind, so throughout the race you need to make sure that you don't lose too much of it. Ideally going into the Homestretch, you want to take an inside line to conserve stamina as well, but the issue is, that tends to get quite crowded, and getting bunched up between other horses is a surefire way to kill off all your speed. You can use your whip to go a bit faster, but that doesn't always work when you're tightly packed together. However, if you manage to pick up a boost card during the race, you can use that for a burst of speed to push you through the crowd. It's always a good feeling to cross the finish line in first place, and the more races that you win, the more trophies you get to add to your gallery. But it's not just the racing that you have to think about, as in typical Game Freak fashion, winning races gains your horse experience, allowing it to level up and improve its stats like speed, stamina, and tolerance to being whipped. Alongside the stat system, each horse will have a unique set of abilities as well, which have different effects like adding a joker card to your table or being faster on the outside of turns. You'll start off with just the one, but you can unlock more by picking up skill cards that are present on the race course. But there's even more to it than just that. As time goes on and your horse participates in more and more races, it will start to grow older, and at 4 years old it will be considered a mature horse. At this point you can't level up, increase your stats any further, or gain any more abilities, so you have to try and maximize those when your horse is still young. When your horse gets to the ripe old age of 5, or loses 3 races as a mature horse, it retires from racing and lives out the rest of its days on the farm. From there, you can pick from a selection of other horses to race with that you unlock over the course of the game, all of which have unique stat distributions and designs. Also in typical Game Freak fashion, you can even breed your retired horses together. Then there's the shop, which you can buy some very handy items from. Things like goggles, which show which cards you're able to use next, or carrots to boost your horse's stamina. Initially, the items are all reasonably cheap, but as the game goes on, the shopkeeper very sneakily starts to increase the prices. It's a neat detail, and there's actually a lore explanation for this. Allegedly she's using the money to pay for her younger brother's education, but nobody really believes her. It's just another small thing that adds to the charm of this game. Also, there's online PvP now, which is cool. I gave it a try, and it did take a while to find a match initially, although that might have partially had something to do with the fact that I was playing at 2 AM my time, but eventually when I did, things worked fine. Of course, you do have to wait for the other person to finish making their moves if they take longer than you, but that's to be expected. Also, yeah, I got completely destroyed here, I'm sorry. Regardless, I feel like part of the reason it took a bit of time for me to find an opponent is that not enough people are playing this game. The great thing about this remaster is that it serves as a way to allow more people to experience it, and I am so happy that it's no longer going to fade into obscurity like many other old 3DS titles. If you haven't given it a shot already and are intrigued by the concept, I'd suggest checking it out. Solitaire and horse racing seems like such a random combination, but in reality, it's a match made in heaven. I guess compared to all of the other Game Freak games, this one's a bit of a dark horse. Yo, thanks for making it all the way to the end, it means a lot. I quite enjoyed this game back on the 3DS, so I was pretty excited to find out that it was getting a Switch remaster. It deserves far more attention than it gets, so go give it a play if you're interested. Anyhow, I will see you guys around.